Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. The pandemic has taken such a toll, forcing so many of us into isolation for weeks, even months, cutting us off from work and school, from our families and friends. The consequences have been nothing short of astounding, and among them has been an alarming increase in the amount of anxiety, sadness, and depression among our children and teenagers. The U.S. Surgeon General issued a stark warning that we're in the midst of a mental health crisis that's having, in his words, devastating effects among young people. He cited rates of anxiety and depression that started climbing even before the pandemic, then skyrocketed during it. The Centers for Disease Control's yearly youth survey found nearly 3 in 5 teenage girls in the U.S. felt persistently sad or hopeless, a 60% increase over the past decade. Worse yet, almost 1 in 3 girls seriously considered attempting suicide, also up nearly 60% from a decade ago. 10% say they made a suicide attempt. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for American kids ages 10 to 14. And while the pandemic unquestionably disrupted the lives of teenagers, many of the trends that we're seeing have been on the rise for the better part of a decade, long before COVID. Experts say the causes of the teen mental health crisis are many. Given those challenges, how can families and schools respond? This week, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced that the state and PBS stations across New York are teaming up to help, with special programming all this week focused on teen mental health, and resources, including a multimedia toolkit that's designed to equip educators and school mental health professionals with critical knowledge and strategies to support the mental well-being of their students. Governor Hochul hosted a listening tour on youth mental health and the first ever summit earlier this summer.
So your presence here today gives me hope that we're a caring state. It's an acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers. And what we've been doing is simply not good enough. It's also a vow to take the hard questions, give unconventional answers, and challenge the status quo. It is simply a vow to do better. I believe we can accomplish that, starting right here today.
The free online toolkits include video-based resources produced by mental health organizations and public media producers that cover suicide prevention, stress and anxiety, and social media. And longtime PBS partner Ken Burns is the executive producer of a documentary airing here on Mountain Lake PBS, Hiding in Plain Sight, that gives a voice to the experiences of young people who are suffering from mental health challenges.
I remember having sad thoughts and asking myself, what's wrong?
I'd look in the mirror and there's nothing wrong with me on the outside. There's absolutely nothing wrong to make sense of that pain.
My friends had no clue what I was going through.
In anything that I did, I couldn't find myself to be happy.
You need an answer of what is going on.
It's the place where sadness leaves off and depression begins.
It feels like you want to cry, but when you try to cry and release it, there's nothing there.
It's the place where nervousness becomes anxiety and habit becomes addiction.
If I take one pill, if I take one sip of a drink, it's over.
That continual usage becomes a coping method.
All of us are affected by mental health challenges in some way, whether in our own lives or the life of someone we know, often hiding in plain sight.
At that age, how are you ever going to admit, I'm thinking of suicide?
When something abrupt like someone you know dying from suicide happens, it's very difficult to understand what to do from there.
These are the journeys of more than 20 young Americans from all over the country and all walks of life, who have struggled with thoughts and feelings that have troubled and at times overwhelmed them. They share what they have learned about themselves, their families, and the world they live in. They speak for many of us. They speak to all of us.
Part 1 of Hiding in Plain Sight aired this week on Mountain Lake PBS. We will present Part 2 this coming Monday evening at 10 p.m. You can watch both Part 1 and 2 on our streaming service Passport or on our online education platform, PBS Learning Media. You can see the web address there on your screen. And if you go to our website, you can learn more about the student mental health toolkits that are free and now available through Mountain Lake PBS.